What was your moment in time when you're like, all right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to build it myself. I'm getting out there. What did that look like for you, Tim?
It's a common story. I was working for someone, and like many, I had a bit of a I can do it better attitude.
Who is your target audience? How do you find them? How did you come up with this idea? Because I think it's really interesting.
Necessity is the mother of invention. So as far as coming up with the idea, I think like a lot of us entrepreneurs, we're always looking to improve and fantasizing in our own minds about how things could be. And so it's always like, what else could I do?
All right. Welcome to another edition of the Superpro Podcast, the heartbeat of home service excellence. I'm Roland and Tim. I'm your host. I'm also the co-founder of Housecall Pro, and I am a huge advocate for all the hardworking pros out there helping make our homes better, safer, more comfortable. Through Housecall Pro, I have the pleasure of helping hundreds of thousands of pros just like you, empowering you all to achieve more, stress less, and redefine success in our industry. I'm super excited. Today, we're talking to Tim Allen. Whenever I hear that word, I'm like, Tim the Toolman Taylor, and I think like Tim Allen. And you're probably like, I heard that a million times. But he's the owner of Kopa Home Services based in Flagstaff, Arizona. He's built a unique business, which is kind of a blend of like a handyman / property management with this like new whole home approach. We're going to talk a little bit into that, especially how he deals with vacation rentals, long-term properties, dealing with property managers, all kinds of stuff. He started it in 2017. He's grown it into nearly $1 million business. That's his goal for this year. He's got 4 trucks on the road, 9 employees. He's got lots of different divisions. He's investing in real estate. He's doing all kinds of fun stuff. I'm super excited to have Tim on the show. He's a multifaceted guy, and we're going to dive into some of his tips and tricks. Welcome to the show, Tim.
Thank you, Roland. I'm excited to be here. Roland, you're my hero. I've been looking up to you for years now since I started using Housecall Pro, so I'm really stoked to meet you.
No, I'm glad to have you on here. I love hearing origin stories, the entrepreneurial journey, as we were talking about a little bit before we even started click the record button here. But that's always fascinating to me. What was your moment in time when you're like, all right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to build it myself. I'm getting out there. What did that look like for you, Tim?
It's a common story. I was working for someone. I had some background in a home service business, had managed an appliance repair shop for years, had an opportunity to move into a property management space. And like many, I had a bit of a I can do it better attitude. There was a little bit. I didn't enjoy where I was at. I didn't enjoy who I was working for. Had some experience in business in the past and had been in this. So many of us have been there where we think, man, maybe it's just the paycheck. Maybe I just need the paycheck. And I had been in that mode for maybe 3 or 4 years. And if you've ever been there and you revert to that after being self-employed or commissioned or kind of, on your own, it took me a couple years to go, nope, that is not what I wanted. And so, I kind of worked my way into a few things. I didn't like where I was at. And just like many, I said, hey, I need to do this. I need to do this for myself and prove it. I had to prove it.
Yeah. Yeah, you had to prove it. And sometimes having like a chip on your own shoulder, just knowing that you can do it or do it better, that's often enough to get you started down the road. And sure, you may think, you want to control your own destiny and it'll be easier than a paycheck, but in reality, you're going to be putting more hours in, but you'll be able to determine where you put those hours in, and you can control. And we can talk a little bit about, we talked a little bit earlier about just like balance and where do you find balance as an entrepreneur, because it's really hard, especially because we tend to go all in on something, You've got a unique business though. I would say you found a really cool niche. Tell people kind of how your whole home approach works. Who is your target audience? How do you find them? How did you come up with this idea? Because I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, necessity is the mother of invention. So as far as coming up with the idea, I did have, I'm always I could be in an amusement park and I think how this roller coaster should be built, right? I think like a lot of us entrepreneurs, we're always looking to improve and fantasizing in our own minds about how things could be. And so it's always like, what else could I do? So getting into the property management space, it became a little bit of what else I could do. At the time, it's pretty common now. They sell courses on Facebook. So um, very few property managers were integrating their maintenance department, their maintenance division, becoming contractors, and those that were extremely successful at it. And so there was a little bit of knowing that it existed, knowing that it was uncommon, and wanting to like, hey, I can do this, and a little bit of, man, I'm broke. I need the $50. I'll go do that. I'll go do the work. I know how to do it. The plumber takes too long. The handyman that you find on Craigslist isn't reliable. I know where I am. Let me go fix this. So a little bit of both, kind of both dreaming and necessity.
Well, and sometimes you're scratching your own itch a little bit because it's a need that you have yourself, and then you're like, okay, I know if I have this need, maybe others have this need, and so I think that's very common when people are like, well, how do you come up with an idea? Oftentimes it starts with a little bit of I just say it's reflection because you know what you need best. So tell me, like, how does the whole home approach when you come to somebody and say like, hey, with Kopa you get X, like, how does that pitch work, and how do you see that maybe even changing in the next couple of years, 5 years, or does it stay the same?
Yeah, I think it changes a lot as far as how it works. As a property manager, it is a necessity, and people have an expectation, regardless of whether or not it's actually the scope of our work or of my job. It becomes an expectation of the customer, and it becomes what they actually want. And not many property managers deliver on that. Hey, I want you to take care of my house. If you're in real estate, or you've invested in real estate, or you've even had just that one house you moved out of and kept as a rental, it depreciates. You get that big juicy depreciation on your taxes every year. And homes do depreciate like any other
there's a reason why there's depreciation. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. And so having a desire to say, hey, I want this house at the end of an investment cycle, that might be 5 years for some, it might be 50 years for others. I want it to be in relatively the same condition as the day it started. And that means a lot of maintenance over the years. That means taking care of it. There's a lot of wear and tear on a house, and we want to offer, as a manager, I wanted to say, oh my gosh, managers aren't doing this. They're just collecting the rent. You show up 4 years later and your place is trashed. I know because it happened to me. And unfortunately, I was the landlord. So I had myself to blame. And that was a real eye opener, having a rental, having moved on to a bigger and better things. And then that heartbreak of coming back and going, man, my place is trashed. I stood in a house with another owner. It's happened more than once, but this person happened to be my landlord. I was moving into a new house, and he goes, oh, let me show you the place. Or I was considering a place to move into. And we walked in there, and the dude cried. He hadn't seen the house in a few years. And he goes, wow, my place is trashed. I did end up renting the place. He got rid of those tenants, and I stayed there for a few great years. But yeah, so that approach of managing the asset and the property in a way that maybe it's never the nicest house on the block, but that that it maintains exactly what it is. And that when you're done, gosh, you don't need $50,000 in repairs just to put it on the market. And, and over time, I learned people want that for their primary residence too. We want to offer not everything, but most of the things you need to maintain your house. Because as all of us here in the trades know, I think that exactly 0% of people are doing all of the things that you should do to maintain a home. So many people, even those who think that it's important, aren't doing everything they should do to keep their home in tip-top shape.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm even thinking about my own place right here. I'm like, oh man, that southwest facing fascia board is starting to come off, and I know it should be sanded down and repainted, but I gotta wait till spring, and then you put it off, and you put it off. But it's like that times all of the other things that you should be doing, with your home. How are you finding these customers? How are you getting the word out about Kopa Home Services? Is this something where it's a lot of word of mouth? This is something where you've got like a particular marketing strategy that's working really well. How do people hear about Tim? How do you hear about Kopa?
Yeah, well, I hate to share that I'm a bad marketer. Um, it started. I just answered the phone. I'm in a relatively small market. We're a couple hours from the large city of Phoenix, which is a drive-to market, and we're on a bit of a service island. Hard to find labor, less competition. And while there's plenty of competition, I've never had a robust and comprehensive marketing strategy. When I started, I hate to say it. When I started, it was just hustle. Answer the phone, get out there, get there quick, get there first, call people back, personal social media and things like that. It also, of course, being in the property management space, I had a built-in, set of clients, and I was very, very cautious to offer the value. I didn't, the word captive audience, I hate using that term because I think as service providers, we want to add the value. We don't want anybody coming to us, because they have to. And so to this day, I offer all of our property management clients like, hey, we can do this for you. Here's what we do. Here's our markup if that comes into play and all of those things. Or you can hire someone else. It doesn't bother us either way. And when they look on Google, they'll see that we have more reviews, positive reviews, more presence, and all of that. So, it was just personal hustle, doing what we said we're going to do, getting the good reviews, and then building that relationship, improving it.
Yeah, I feel like the golden nugget that I think you humbly skipped over here, but it's kind of this outcome independence, which means that you're good, you have what they need, and that you offer a valuable service at the price for which you charge. And I think having the back end reviews and the online presence now to really back that up, it almost comes full circle because they either say yes on the spot because of the confidence component, or they're like, I don't know, let me go check this out. Is this guy for real? Right? Is this company legit? They go check it out and then they come back. So you're kind of setting up like, hey, you can pick door one or door two. They both end up on Kopa's lap, and we're going to be the ones to service you. I think a lot of folks are maybe even sometimes a little scared to let that customer go or go check it out. But that confidence inspires, look, if it's my home or my investment, I need to make sure that the person servicing this thing is confident that they're the best. Because if they don't feel that confidence, how can I have confidence in them? That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, absolutely. That's absolutely true. We are confident. We know we do a good job. And you know what? We make mistakes too. So
yeah, and look, I think your model is interesting because it's not just typical handyman work. You can cover really just like the breadth of the things that happen in the home. How are you able to find a team and build it in such a way that whatever the client needs, you guys are able to handle it?
Yeah, that's been tough. In the several years ago and in the early days, we tried to do too much. I thought, oh, we can do that. We can do that. And it took a while to kind of learn what our scope is, to stay in our lane, and to find the team is tough. As all of us here on Housecall Pro and in the industry, the handyman industry there's a lot of independence. I think I've put more people into the handyman world by them going out on their own and things like that, than I've had, let's say, stay over 5. Well, I've never had anybody for 5 years, so I know I've put more out there.
Mm-hmm.
So in the beginning, gosh, it was all over the place. It was just scrambling out there, flailing.
It's hustle.
Like one of those.
Yeah.
I was one of these guys, with the
on the side of the
wavy
road,
arms,
trying to get your attention.
Yeah, and over time, now of course it's a lot more intentional, a lot of training, a lot of communication. It's talking about it every single day, meetings, and really sharing the vision with all employees, talking about, hey, what do you want to learn?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to learn something else? Are you happy blowing the pine needles, or do you want to learn how to do drywall? And then, of course, going from there, where we are a licensed contractor and can start to do bigger things and things like that, which we haven't yet. We don't do remodels or anything like that.
Yeah, general construction style stuff. What's the craziest thing you've encountered so far? Since starting the business. What's the craziest story? If we're having beers and you're like, Roland, you can't believe this story, but like, hear me out. This is what happened as we're building this business.
Wow. Besides COVID, huh? Remember that time?
Yeah.
Gosh, I wish I would have thought about that one. I've had employees, hotel rooms show up on credit cards in the early days when I didn't really know how to track that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I've a couple days later, a week, 2 weeks, whatever it was, like, wow, what is this hotel room doing? Talk to the person. Oh, well, I was driving through here or there on the weekend and didn't have any money. So put a hotel room on the card. I don't know that that's crazy. It's probably happened. Misuse of company resources probably happens to all of us.
Especially before it's trackable or easily trackable too.
Yeah, and before the fleet maintenance, of course, I've been driving down the street and seen my truck. Wow, what is this doing here? Oh gosh, that person called in sick today. So, I feel kind of boring. I feel like I failed on that one, but just off the top of my head, those are the things that come to mind when it's like I got a good one. I got a little better one. Craziest thing. I am living in a community, fairly nice, kind of in the country club. These duplex style homes. I've got a 2-car garage, and I get a call from the HOA because I also manage homes in that community. And the HOA manager says, Tim, I think you manage this rental and somebody is running a business out of their garage. And, that is not allowed. I'm being told they have people there at 6 a.m. getting ready for work. And I said, well, HOA manager gal, that's me. I said, yep, I have been running a business out of my garage, and I'll get it sorted out. So that was such a great blessing because we were running cleaning crews, we were running laundry, we were running maintenance, all out of my 2-car garage. And somebody complained, and that's when we got our first warehouse space, of which we now have 2. So it was a great motivator to get out there and make it real.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of pros probably are in a similar boat where, a lot of them start from their own garage, their literal own garage.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a tech start from a garage. Because you know what? Why move vehicles from place to place to place, until you can really go build it out? Obviously, you've got multiple warehouses now. You've got multiple vans on the road, 9 employees. At what point were you like, okay, I need a tool like Housecall Pro to help track some of these things a little bit better? What was that moment, and how did you stumble across Housecall Pro?
Well, the old Facebook thing of I must have been complaining. I was probably crying in my sleep about not having control of anything. And then Housecall Pro started popping up. Um, Let me think, did we hit COVID? We
It was right
determined
before COVID, I think.
when I came
Yeah,
on board. I think it
a
was,
couple months
yeah,
before COVID. Uh-huh.
right before. So we were just starting. Well, we had already blown up. We were for several years. We doubled and or tripled. One year we tripled revenue, and just year over year that just kept happening right on through COVID and all of it. And
Mm-hmm.
that was a little over 2 years in that it just. I mean, I was running, all of it on Google Calendar, Google
Mm.
Sheets. My partner, she would make these awesome maintenance reports and job reports for both our property management clients and our public clients. And they rival anything that I've ever seen. Nobody has ever made a job report as thorough as what we used to do on a Google Sheet. But it took 8 to 25 minutes each of like, okay, tech gets back, text the pics, put them on, drag them over, resize them, all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it just became obvious that was unsustainable. My partner,
Yeah.
Katie, is, gosh, she goes hard. And she was starting to break with the workload of it. And so it was pretty obvious. And lo and behold, Facebook came through with their listening and giving me the answer.
That's right. Yeah, they know, and then they show you the exact right ad at the right moment. That's so funny, and I think you probably the way that you feel is a way a lot of the pros feel, where it's just like at a certain point, it's just so much overhead, and you keep kind of growing, and at a certain point, things just break, and there's an easier way to do something because there's probably other people that have experienced that kind of growth, and there has to be a
Yeah.
tool out there. Looking back at it now. All the Housecall Pro features. What's something that you wish you would have started, maybe for these listeners that are either don't know Housecall Pro or just starting to use Housecall Pro? What's something where you're like, man, if I started over, I would have been using this feature since day one?
Well, I just wrote down because it was part of the conversation of like waiting until something breaks. And I always had that kind of attitude, like, why would I pay, more money for something that I can do on Google Calendar? And I use the Google
Mm-hmm.
Suite a lot. So I'm not discounting the free stuff. You should definitely take advantage of it. But Roland, if I had to do it over again, I would have gotten Housecall Pro before I ever got a customer. I would, and it's hard because a lot of times you roll in, you've got a leaf blower, you don't have the money to just go out there. But I would have taken more of a leap of faith, had less of a scarcity mindset, and said, hey, when I get that first call, I can't even take the second call because now I got to do my job report. If I put
Mm.
Housecall Pro in first and took that leap of faith that, hey, by the end of the month, that money's going to be there, I think I would have scaled and grown a lot better, more
Mm-hmm.
quickly, and certainly with better mental health and balance. So just the fact of getting it on board, if you don't think you're ready, but you want to be ready, you're ready, in my opinion. It is hard because there's those times where it's a leap of faith where you're just like, hey, the
Mm-hmm.
$500 or, I don't think even my plan's still not that much, but it's just not there.
Mm-hmm.
Start, always think of like, hey, wait, where do you want to be? Like, and
Yeah.
try to be a few steps ahead.
Yeah.
As far as the one, feature, we went to Max right away.
Mm.
I was talking to, I think his name was Max. I'm pretty sure my salesman's name was Max.
Could be. Max Winkler was a longtime sales rep at Housecall Pro in the early days of Housecall Pro because you guys joined, pre-COVID. So he was probably still here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I was looking at it and just right away, I was like, hey, these are all game changing features. So, we've got to get them all right away. I don't want to be sitting there and clicking on something or knowing that I want something and
Mm-hmm.
not have it. And even then, that was a leap of faith for us of like, whoa, it's twice as much,
Yeah.
or whatever that is, worth
Yep.
every penny.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's hard to see because you're thinking, oh my gosh, more expenses, even when you're starting out. What's interesting with House Call Pro too, if you're just a one person shop, we've got plans that are really cheap that just do invoicing that are essentially free to, $49 a month. That gives you kind of the CRM, but as you start to grow, you need to be able to add more seats, more people to it. And a lot of people are like, I don't need to add everyone to it. It's like, no, because you want everyone using the same system and being able to audit all of the things and who's clicking on what and who's doing all of that. And then ultimately, just sometimes taking that leap of faith is hard, but you can only charge what you do if you bring the value. And not just the value one time over, but multiple times over. And that's how you're able to do it, especially because, we don't do contracts. It's month to month. If
Yeah.
we don't make your, job any easier, then you should, I don't know, leave, and so
Oh,
we've done it
definitely.
from
You
the
should
start.
definitely leave.
Yeah. But it means that we have to be, on the ball. We have to, make sure that the value's there, and that it works. I think a lot of the people too are in your position where they're using maybe like a QuickBooks or a Square and a Google Calendar, and maybe they're using like a Ring Central, and they've got like 7 different tools. None of them really talk to each other really well, and they just keep going back and forth between all these tools, and they're not really talking to one another, and then it just becomes so overwhelming. I think even though there's a lot of free or very cheap solutions out there, long term you're going to spend so much more time trying to like figure out how to do it to where like you would have saved yourself so many hours if you just kept it all in one house, one platform. And you're right, yeah, with that max plan you kind of get all of the things. There's still even more things you can explore too. So um, what would be your advice for other people? You're in the Super Pro group. You're a Super Pro.
Mhm.
What kind of advice would you give other folks that maybe aren't Super Pros yet or haven't even joined a community yet? How has that helped you and change your business?
The first of all, the marketing credit, the street cred. The street cred's a
Mm-hmm.
big deal. We focus hard, like we manage vacation rentals. So we're an Airbnb superhost. We're a VRBO premier partner. We are a booking.com, whatever they call it. Um, we're a Housecall Pro, Super Pro. We look at those things of whatever platform it might be. And why wouldn't you, want to be the best? Um, the it it gives you just a lot of street credibility that you can talk to people and say, hey, there's I don't know how many users Housecall Pro has, but I assume it's in the tens of thousands.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and a small percentage of a single digit number, you know, do things in a way that meet these metrics and that meet these criteria. And we're one of them. And
Mm-hmm.
I think just starting with saying it out loud that, hey, this is important. I mean, I wanted to get there for years before we did. And it's hard to get everything in order. It's hard to get, the time of like, okay, I've got to do this thing, I've got to do that thing. Um, but it's important to do it,
Mm-hmm.
and it really does. Your customers respect you because, for whatever reasons of human psychology, not only do they see it as you know, it, it, whether they
It's
think about it or
validation.
not, it's
Mm-hmm.
validation. It's like, hey, they did something right to get that. They don't
Yep.
hand out the I know it's just a piece of paper, but
Yeah.
we had to think about it over the course of years. And hey, you know what? If you're on top of it and you're super organized and you can focus, that's one thing I love about the Super Pro program is you can also get there right away. The first time I looked at it was a little overwhelming, because there's a couple of pages. It's not
Yeah.
it's not like an act of Congress, but it was still like, oh man, I can't do all this.
Yeah.
Um, But if you just knock it out and if it's important to you, then
Yeah.
it gets you there. And it has been, it's been great. It's been really nice to have that, to be able to post on social media every once in a while. Hey, check out my new koozie, or check out my my plaque, my certificate, and also being able to, the big thing that I post when it happened, and then when we every once in a while we'll get something reminding us from you guys. I like to give kudos to my team. I think it really helps the team of, like, first of all, they might look at me and go, "Oh, he is doing something back there." But also, I remind them that, hey, we did this. You guys are serious about your customer service, and they would not reach out to us and make us a part of this program if we were all 3-star reviews. They just wouldn't. You don't want that representing your company, and so yeah.
That's that's really good, because I think some people are like, well, I don't know, do customers even know what a Superpro means, or like, well, where do they see those things? And that's a part of the aspect, becoming a Superpro. But I think just in general, there is not some hoops. There's no cost to it. It's just if you run your business in a customer friendly way, you'll probably likely qualify. If you're using Housecall Pro, you're using the review tool, you probably have the amount of reviews, and the reviews are probably high enough to get you in. So there's not anything brand new you have to do. You just have to be good. And if you're good, you should show it. And like you said, Tim, homeowners will just see things like that and be like, oh, wow, okay, they're Superpro, they got this thing, I got this thing. And there's a human psychology to it, and it's the same reason, like on Airbnb, Superhost. I would prefer to book, with a Superhost, because I know that they'll probably answer me on time and answer quickly because they're integrated with the platform and they're doing things. So there's the what's in it for you, which is a customer facing side. And there's also, access to new betas, alphas. You get to test the new features when they come out. You get to give feedback from the Superpros group. So there's a whole nother layer behind it that really isn't something that's really even customer focused or bring you new business, but just access to more new, latest and greatest tools, which helps keep you in front of the pack, because using software to run your business isn't a new idea. But using Housecall Pro in ways and adopting the new features, that will keep you ahead.
Yeah, it absolutely will. And one thing, I don't know if I had told your employee this or somebody else, but I don't do it as much as I'd like. I'll give the advice. So do what I say, not what I do. But be a super user. I promise you, Roland is smarter. If you're watching this, Roland's smarter than you when it comes to software. The guys that are doing the people that are doing your development, and the people that are putting these tools together, if you don't think it's a great tool, don't use it. There's other softwares out there. There's bigger softwares, there's cheaper softwares, there's smaller. If it's not a great tool, don't use it. But if you're going to use it, be a super user. Dive in there. Every feature you make, and that's when I said, when we came on, I go, oh, Roland, you're my hero. Every feature you make has come from someone asking for it. Roland gets to see, the Housecall Pro team gets to see tens of thousands. How many? I don't know how many you have. So I assume it's in the tens?
Easily.
Of home service providers every single day. And so every feature you might go, oh, that's stupid. It's not. It's not stupid. People are using it successfully. So get in there, do the training, have your people do the training, and use every feature that they make. And I'm not saying you have to use every paid feature. There's plenty that I don't use. I like to, we answer our phones in the office and things like that. And we don't have the kind of business that we have to answer outside of business hours. But the features that can help you, and that, even if you think, well, they're too expensive or whatever, be a super user is what I'm saying. Dig in there and use the software, because these people that do it, they're smart, and it doesn't work as well if you don't use it. You gotta kind of fully commit. That this isn't a I'm not a Housecall Pro spokesman, but
well, I will say, early adopters always get the worm, and there's a reason why things are built. And also, things aren't perfect when they're first built, but it's the feedback that comes from it. Once you get a little bit of value out of it, that makes it better. And so a lot of people are like, it doesn't quite work for me yet, or whatever. Like, there are ways, and there are other people, that are using it. There's a reason there's value there. So it behooves you, to figure out, like, how can I make this work for my business? Because I promise you there's a way. A lot of people are like, Roland, service plans, don't work for my kind of business. And I'm like, no, I promise you there's a way. If you're a auto detailer, why don't you sell a quarterly, rinse and shine package for, maybe it ends up being $30 a month. And now every quarter, someone just comes out to my vehicle, cleans it, and I just have a small monthly bill. There's ways to Netflix your business. There's ways to build kind of this recurring revenue in your business that helps you cover a lot of just overhead, which would help you in the low seasons. It helps you low distribute work in the high seasons. So there's lots of ways. If people are like, how would you do this? Come to our community of Superpros. Just ask them, like, hey, how are you doing this? How are you doing this? Because you're not alone, right? There's tens of thousands of users using those things, and even the early alphas. There's hundreds and thousands. So there's a lot of usage there. Tim, this has been awesome. You've shared so many great golden nuggets here. Is there one last parting word of wisdom you might have for any home service pros that are earlier, either in their career, earlier in their business building, earlier to market, whatever it happens to be? What kind of kernel of wisdom do you have here that you can share before we close out?
The thing that I'd want to share is to beware of the grind. Our business has a lot of work harder culture. Our industry, a lot of industries, shut up and work harder, quit complaining and work harder. I've even heard on, podcasts, people kind of knock forget about this, work smarter. Just, it is work harder, grind all day, every day. And I'm not discounting that because I did it. And after years of working 12 to 15 or more hours a day, every single day, I can attest that it works. It definitely works. And gosh, I wish we could do the alternate dimensions where I could go back and go, hey, I want to learn first. I want to plan a little more. I want to be smarter. I want to take 8 hours a day, be very intentional, plan where you're going, and do the things to get there. One of our core values is right things, right order. Do the right things in the right order. That the growth, we went through explosive growth and it was painful. I would tell people, and a lot of people might disagree, saying, hey, BS, you got to get out there. You got to work 12 hours a day if you want to make it. That painful growth, if it's painful, if it's not fun, if your relationships or your family are suffering, there's something wrong. Step back, go backwards a little bit, fix it first, get that software, put the processes in place. And it's hard because a lot of us, myself included, all I knew was hustle. I don't have a college degree, business courses and things like that, but the resources are there. Spend the time, educating yourself and just beware that grind, because the outcomes you see a lot of it, of the negative outcomes in any business, but in our home trades and our service businesses, we see those outcomes of, whatever they are, missing your family or divorce, or, gosh, now I've known guys that seem to die prematurely from working too hard. So, that's kind of a thing that we don't know. Maybe there's a guy out there that says, hey, I never worked more than 6 hours a day and look at my, huge business. And I'm not an advocate for this 2-hour work week. It'd be nice, I guess. But I'm like, okay, that's also unrealistic. But that broad spectrum of the 2-hour or 4-hour work week, whatever that philosophy is, all the way to, grind 20 hours a day. And if you're sleeping, then you're missing opportunity. There's a good balance in between. And finding a balance early and often is what I would tell people in the services business, because you can lose yourself to your business, whatever it is, real fast.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I think, there's a balance to all things. And at the end of the day, you have to make sure to always enjoy the journey, because we only have one. And so with that note, Tim Allen, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. Stay tuned, all of you all, for the next episode launching next week on the Superpro Podcast. Once again, Tim, thanks so much. And for all of you guys, if you enjoyed the episode, be sure to subscribe. Leave us a review, please. Let us know how we're doing. If you'd like to be a guest, become a Superpro, chat with Shayna. We can get you on here. If you're looking for tools to streamline your home service business, you heard a little bit about Housecall Pro. It'll show you what it looks like. It might be something that'll help you in your journey. Thank you all. Bye, Tim.
Thanks, Roland.
The Superpro Podcast is brought to you by Housecall Pro, the leading platform for the home service industry. Housecall Pro streamlines your workflows and simplifies everything from scheduling and dispatching to communication and billing. Unlock the full potential of your home service business with Housecall Pro. Work smarter and more efficiently with streamlined workflows and detailed analytics. Win more business and serve your customers well, every single time. Join more than 40,000 home service pros who have already revolutionized their businesses. Work smarter with streamlined workflows, get organized with centralized information, and scale your business your way. Learn more at housecallpro.com.